Dr. Mary Bowden in Texas, she's been writing a bit about how she's been testing antibody levels. And what she's finding is that levels of antibody to spike protein for people who have been vaccinated, who are her patients, they remain elevated for long periods of time. And that's not normal. That's completely abnormal. So this is just part of the reason why we absolutely need more infrastructure in this area, more scientific infrastructure, more funding to support the patients and the physicians and the scientists who can help us understand what the long-term impacts are for all populations who've received these products.
That was our friend, Florida Surgeon General, Dr. Joseph Ladapo, explaining why he is going to remove all mRNA products from the Sunshine State. They're simply too dangerous. That's what we've been reporting. That's what Dr. Mary Bowden, who he referenced there, has been saying on this and other shows that she's allowed to go on. And that's what he's been seeing. And that's why the Japanese government is also learning in real time, according to a report shared by ex-user @VigilantFox, saying, quote, a chilling analysis of 21 million vaccination records in Japan links 600,000 deaths to mRNA COVID shots, an estimate that eerily mirrors the nation's soaring excess death toll. Now, this is no longer conjecture. There is hard data coming out of Japan proving that the COVID-19 mRNA vaccinations are themselves a health threat to anyone who dares or is forced by their government overlords, however they come about, to take the clot shots. In fact, one study in Japan proved, as this chart showed, that the millions of Japanese who were forced to take the mRNA shots during the pandemic actually were more susceptible to COVID-19, as well as a coterie of other more dangerous side effects and illnesses than were those who did not take the mRNA jabs. We're joined now by Japanese-based independent investigative journalist. She's been the woman who has really been exclusively reporting on this massive story that's occurring in Japan. Welcome back to the show, Masako Ganaha. Masako, it's good to see you again.
Hello, Emerald. Thank you very much for having me on.
So we talked about this a few weeks ago. We went in detail on the study, the data that one particular scientist, professor in Japan has been working to compile. And then as we left things, there was going to be a 3-hour conference call, right, where people from around the world were invited to take part. Tell us the latest, Masako, because look, this is trending in a good direction. It's not moving fast enough. I'll say that, especially here in the United States. But I think Ladapo now making that statement, and then with the Japanese, because these are some Japanese officials, these are government officials that are also calling for the removal of the mRNA jabs, or at least highlighting the dangerous side effects, right? There is now starting to be a groundswelling, I believe, of people demanding that the mRNA jabs, and not just us average people, right? People in official capacity saying, okay, something's got to give here. So tell us the latest from Japan, Masako.
Yes, thank you very much. I've been working with a group in Japan. It's called the United Citizens for Stopping mRNA Vaccine. That's their official name. And they have been calling for the Japanese volunteers across Japan, and 350 Japanese volunteers decided to do the Japanese FOIA at their individual local residence town. And the database is now accumulated up to 25 million injections. Before I talked to you, it was 21 million, but now it's up to 25 million. And last week, we did an online press conference in English because we received so many messages and interview requests from abroad, especially to Professor Yasufumi Murakami. He is the key scientist in this research, and he deeply talked about the discovery. And one of the things is that, as you showed on the screen, is that originally he was thinking about the death peak from this poison injection appeared right after getting injection. but this database showed that the effect continues and the death peak, highest death peak was after 3 to 4 months after getting this injection. And we had two special guests, a commentator, one from United States, Mike Adams. He's a medical researcher, and he has his own show. He's very well known in US, of course. And one other scientist, his name is Willem Engel. He is also specialized in medical field, and he's a human rights activist. And thanks to those two, our conversation got so deepened, and this online conference went spreading even more. And many people have realized that this Japanese database can reveal much more. The study is ongoing, so I am one of person who is waiting for more discovery from Professor Murakami. And also, before I forget, I would like to mention, just today, I saw a news. It says that, this is from Nikkei News, Moderna, one of the injection poison that they produced, the company, Moderna, they announced that they canceled construction of mRNA vaccine active pharmaceutical ingredients plant in Kanagawa Prefecture.
What do you think was behind the decision to cancel this project? Is it that the demand is down so significantly for the Moderna
They
vaccine?
announced that they are going to stop the This is a very good news. Yes, Moderna, yes.
This is really good news, but what is the impetus of this? What is the catalyst to pulling the plug on this project? Is it that the demand is down, or is it in direct relation to, I mean, well, both are kind of probably related, but just that there is now a real focus on the death related to the jabs?
According to the article, it says that they were going to produce more injections for COVID, but because of the low demand, that they decided to stop the construction. I think the strategy that this organization that I'm working with took is not only approaching to the government, but approaching to the Japanese individual people. Because no matter what we say, government is pushing, because they know what they're doing, and they're killing people, and they don't stop, they don't admit. So what Japanese grassroots movement decided to do is to educate people. So no matter what the government and pharmaceutical company do, if individual don't just take it, then their plot is over. So I think this is somewhat connected to this success of this grassroots movement in Japan.
Wow. Masako, that's a real testament to your effort on the part of you and your colleagues, and of course the good professor that's conducting this study. Congratulations. That's huge news, and it shows what can be done with the grassroots efforts, because of course there's a lot of focus, especially here in the United States, in getting Bobby Kennedy's Health and Human Services Department and the FDA here to pull the shots from the market. But as you note, just the law of supply and demand can be an effective way to curb further proliferation of the shots, I guess you would say.
Yes, it's not my credit, but it's the people like who are volunteers for this organization. Once again, United Citizens for Stopping mRNA Vaccine. They're the real heroes. And one politician who also got 3 times injection, and he got the turbo cancer but recovered. His congressman name is Kazuhiro Haraguchi. He has a huge influence in educating Japanese people. He is also actually sued by one of the pharmaceutical company which distributes self-amplifying injection. So I think our strategy was very successful, and this we should apply also to what's going on in WHO. Even US pulled out of WHO. Of course, I think everybody knows that the July 19th is the deadline for each government across the world to reject the International Health Regulation Amendment. Today is the deadline. And Japan sadly did not show that they're going to reject, so they're going to accept it. But once again, no matter what government does or decides the regulation, if we don't go along with it, then their rule doesn't matter. So if they force us to take it, we don't take it. If they force us to wear mask, we don't do it. That's the, it's up to us. That's the strategy our grassroots needs to have as a core.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And speaking of that treaty, I'm so glad you brought that up. Just a short time ago, Secretary Kennedy posted a video saying that the United States does reject the pandemic treaty in order to obtain national sovereignty. So no equivocation on the part of the Trump administration, Health and Human Services, where we remember during the Biden years, there was the Biden team was definitely playing footsie with the WHO and giving away American sovereignty to this pandemic treaty. So that is hugely encouraging. That just broke a short time ago. Secretary Kennedy's remarks. Masako Ganaha, please keep us updated on the progression of this study. It's an important one with worldwide implications. Japan could really be the world leader in this fight back against the mRNA push. Real quick, when I ask you, how many different countries did you have represented on that press conference? Do you know how many countries tuned in?
Well, the organizer are, of course, Japan. And then we had one special commentator from US and one from, he's originally based in Netherlands, so from Europe. And I'm receiving messages from other countries too, like Thailand or from Asia. So many people are paying attention to the research in Japan. And Professor Murakami emphasized when he spoke in the end, let's get united. So we are open to get united for more research, for more exposure.
Masako, as you noted, this is starting in Japan, but is starting to grow into a global movement. The group you mentioned is obviously doing excellent work, and we'll keep our eye on the other countries in this WHO treaty. That snuck up on me, Masako. I didn't realize that because it's the 19th, that essentially today is July 18th, and so today is basically the deadline. So I'm glad you brought that up, and we have where our own country here in the United States stands on that. Masako Ganaha, thank you so much for getting up in the middle of the night with us. It's already Saturday there. It's already the deadline. It's July 19th. Thanks so much for getting up in the middle of the night to share this very important developments in Japan for us. Thanks, Masako.
Thank you for this opportunity.
All right, we'll be right back after the break with some concerning news for veterans in Florida. We'll explain after the break.
Swollen limbs, joint pain, inflammation, skin aging, and cognitive decline. These are just a few of the awful side effects that you can experience due to poor blood circulation. And popping ibuprofen is not a solution to the pain. It's only temporary relief, and it's only masking the true problem, which is inflammation. Researchers are saying to add this Antarctic super nutrient to your diet. I'm talking about omega-3 fatty acids, but not just any form of omegas. These particular omega-3 fatty acids are sourced from wild-caught krill. Has been shown to support healthy blood pressure, circulation, brain health, as well as reduce inflammation, swelling, and joint pain. For a limited time, you can grab Native Path Antarctic Krill Oil for up to 66% off plus free shipping. Just go to getkrill.com/Lindell right now to get your special offer. With everybody talking about making America healthy again, I thought today'd be a great day to talk to all my fellow patriots about the importance of making your homes healthy again. Well, we have proudly partnered with airwaterhealing.com and their revolutionary whole home air purification system. The V3 from Air Water Healing does 3,000 square feet of purification. It eliminates dust, mold, viruses, and odors. But here's the part I love. They require no filters to ever be changed and virtually no maintenance. Whether you suffer from asthma, allergies, seasonal bronchitis, or just want to protect your family from the flu or even greater threats, don't wait to get your V3 from airwaterhealing.com today. Use code Lindell for 20% off in savings and free shipping. That's promo code Lindell at airwaterhealing.com.
Under the U.S. military's duty to warn, a letter has been sent out warning that, quote, a potential terrorist threat targeting retired senior officials who previously served in the Department of Defense with roles in the Syria-Iraq theater are at risk of potential terrorist threats. The current geographic focus of this threat, according to the military, is Florida. Now, this is not the first time in recent years that foreigners have tried to threaten the lives of U.S. service members. We just might not hear much about it. In May of 2024, a Chechen man was killed outside the home of U.S. Special Forces officer near Fort Bragg, North Carolina. It was believed that the Chechen had been sent to kill that Special Forces officer and possibly his family because of whatever activities he engaged in while overseas in Ukraine. But this threat is specific to Florida. We know that U.S. CENTCOM, the command that runs U.S. forces in the Middle East, is based in Tampa Bay, Florida. There is a large and growing Islamic community in the city of Tampa Bay. In fact, our friend and former FBI counterterrorism agent John Guandolo has been warning about the Islamist sick plan to take over red states, such as Texas and Florida, which seems to be underway right now. And I would remind you that the 9/11 ringleader, Muhammad Atta, had, along with several other 9/11 hijackers, found refuge in Southwest Florida in the weeks and months leading into the 9/11 attacks. They had found refuge among the large Saudi population in the area. Is the same thing underway today in Florida? And is that why this DoD message was sent to former senior military leaders in the Sunshine State? To help us better understand the security threat, I've got former Special Forces member and former CIA contractor Brian O'Shea here with us. And Brian, I think you're also the perfect person to talk about this, not only, for the other reasons I outlined, but you're also, you provide security services, right? So to look for potential threats where you are. This is something that the average American doesn't think about. And I'll be honest, I hadn't thought about this when our men and women, particularly if they're a part of an elite special forces unit, they go in and do some things they can't even tell, their families about. Come home, we don't think about the threat they still might be under. I just anecdotally, a quick story. Recently, I met the father of one of our friends who had been like this really bad, back in the military. And I mean, the stories that he can tell, so imagine stories he can't tell, are quite fit for a Jason Bourne novel. But our friend remembers, getting up in the middle of the night to get some milk, and his dad would come out and there'd be like a red dot on his head because he, knew that he was under threat, and and his family were under threat because of the operations he had conducted in the U.S. military. Brian, tell us what's going on here.
Well, what's going on is really bad news because I served in all of those theaters, and it's interesting that so that's mainly the Enduring Freedom theaters, the War on Terror, if you will. I wanted to point out too that that's also Tampa is also MacDill Air Force Base, where Special Operations Command is located. So it's a pretty big deal. The good news is this. Special Forces, retired or active, are pretty hard targets. They tend to stay in the game in terms of keeping sharp. What does worry me is this fusion of terrorism and the left in this country, where we've had reports in California, for instance, of Uber and Lyft and food delivery drivers being used to target, in that case, Jewish homes and synagogues. They're kind of like the recon. and then in comes the attack force, if you will. So what's going on? Why are they targeting them? I'm trying to just reel through it right now. They do tend to have access to a lot more intelligence. Most special forces people have, at a minimum, a secret collateral clearance. And they're going to have access to a lot more of the operations that were done under presidential directives, which is what special operations operates under, which is why when they deploy, they don't need Congress to approve it. So they have a lot of access to intel, and they also have a lot of access to future operations or upcoming operations.
Why now? I mean, I would imagine that some of these targets, particularly if it's the Iraq theater, that's been a while ago. So why that specific target now?
Well, I would say probably because a lot of those combatants from these other countries were being housed in Iran. So a lot of, for instance, the National Defense Forces of Afghanistan, they were actually being housed in Iran. And there were several requests, one even by Ryan Ruth, the failed second assassin of who tried to take out President Trump, where he was talking in his diary about, like, why don't they use these national defense guys? They're just sitting there in these camps in Iran. Well, it seems to me that Iran was probably saving them for a rainy day. Otherwise, why would they house national defense, U.S. trained by special forces personnel in Iran?
Well, one of the problems that some suggest are contributing to this issue is the rise in Islamism in the red states of America. That's something that John Guandolo talks about a lot. I'm sure you know him. How real is that threat? I mean, we see the images coming out of Texas, particularly. That's gotten a lot of attention. I personally didn't realize Florida was facing similar issues. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I was not aware of that either. It seems it seems like the last place I would think. Yeah, I agree. The rise of Islamism. I would also say, keep an eye on who's been released from prison, not to mention who's come over the border in the last 4 years. But keep in mind, there's a lot of left-wing groups. One even attached to Arabella Advisors. It's called the Chef's Kitchen or something like that. I have to look it up. Who go in and they reform, they give counseling to hardcore criminals across prisons in the United States. Well, I've noticed a lot of those same criminals, when they get out, are at these violent protests and things like that. So again, I mean, that's the danger. The other danger, I would say as well, is that, there's so many illegal aliens still in this country, probably being housed by, especially here in Massachusetts, being housed by kind of useful idiot left-wing neo-Marxist types. And they could be getting housed right next to these bases, which is not hard to do. It's pretty well-known base, so why now? I'm not sure. It'd be better if we had more information on what issued that duty to warn threat, but they should definitely take it seriously. And I'll say this one more thing. It could be more than just personnel. I'd be on the lookout for drone-style attacks like we saw the Ukrainians hit the Russians with, where they just parked some semi-trailer trucks with pre-charged drones, and when the signal went off, the top opened up, and they just were there about a mile away and just laid waste to a lot of those strategic Russian assets. They could easily do that here in the United States.
So final question, when service members get a duty to warn notice like this, first off, how often does that happen? Maybe it's something more common than the public's aware of. That's just kind of caught my attention based on some of the geopolitical events that are going on around the world. And actually was brought to my attention by a friend who got the duty to warn notice. How often does it happen? And what does a former service member do, or a current one, who was in that theater, do when they get that notice? How do they protect themselves?
Well, the number, how often, first of all, it's not very often you see something go out so publicly. But then, and it could just be, it just could be one of these things that they want to be extra safe as we go into summer and there's such a rise in violence. It just really depends on who's running that system. But the other thing is, how do they protect themselves? The way they always did, and that's situational awareness. The key thing is, and Naomi will tell you, my wife will tell you, my head's always on a swivel. I'm always locking doors and windows at night. I always have a long-range camera. There was a white van sitting outside my house for 2 nights the other night, and I'm in a very blue area, and I got the license plate number and everything. Turned out to be a musician with blue hair, but that's, you have to look at you have to look at everything, because everything is real now. And I think the shift, not just retired service members need to make, but the American people as a whole. I would just say, welcome to the party, pal, because this is how most of the rest of the world lives. Constantly vigilant, constantly on duty. And, the American public, we need to add this to our daily lives, unfortunately, but that's the way the world is.
So unfortunate to think of. And you're right. We've been very blessed in this country, because most other countries across the globe, you live that way. They don't have this kind of high trust society that we've been blessed to have for so long. And it's just devastating to know that in just a short amount of time, that kind of trust, that kind of security that we've enjoyed here could be deteriorated so quickly. The last 4 years has just been absolutely detrimental to American security.
Yes.
But that's good advice. Most of us do not think that way. And I have been around you, and I know that's exactly how you are. And you notice you notice every vehicle that goes by. It doesn't. You can be having a conversation and noticing every vehicle that comes by. Because you're Dr. Naomi Wolf's husband. You mentioned Naomi, and she has had, with receiving so much attention and stepping out in such a brave way to talk about the COVID restrictions and jabs. She had to start thinking about that. It's not the kind of world I want for my children, Brian O'Shea. I certainly hope that we can reverse course and get back to where we were, because I want my children to have the kind of childhood I had. Thank you so much, Brian O'Shea. Always good to catch up with you. Very interesting. It's an unusual topic for us, but very interesting. Thank you for giving us the insight.
Anytime.
All right. After the break, Senator Jim Runestad first joins us in our election fraud watch for the latest in Michigan. After the break.
Whether it's being a weekend warrior or spending time with your family, feeling your best is the key to doing the things you love. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Nirvanta. It's a natural solution designed to help you stay active and live well naturally. Nirvanta is a topical blend of all natural essential oils like frankincense, myrrh, and a proprietary gold standard plant stock extract. It's perfect for your hands, feet, knees, back, or anywhere else that needs a little extra care. Use Nirvanta proactively as part of your daily maintenance routine, and you're guaranteed you're going to feel the difference. Simply massage Nirvanta in for at least 60 seconds, 2 to 3 times a day to get the best results. And if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back. No questions asked. There's simply no risk and no reason not to try Nirvanta today. Right now, you get 15% off with code Lindell exclusively at nirvantahealth.com. So stop reaching out for that medicine cabinet. Get Nirvanta instead and experience the difference. Go to nirvantahealth.com. Use code Lindell to get 15% off today. Nirvanta Health. Live well naturally.
The Secretary of State Benson is attempting tomorrow to change the rules so that her compatriot, Attorney General Nessel, can open up lawsuits to expand the secure system to as many other people overseas as possible, including non-uniformed service members. This law should remain clear. Even if a uniformed member is unwilling to use their secure voting system, they should be unable to vote. But these rules demand that they be liberally construed and repeatedly allow for lawsuits to extend these overseas electronic systems to all other American voters living overseas. This would, of course, throw open the door wide for foreign interference in our elections.
It seems like every time we turn around, Michigan Secretary of State, gubernatorial hopeful, Jocelyn Benson is trying with all her might to make Michigan voting less and less secure. But the law doesn't matter to her anyway, as our friend Patrick Colbert, who stated during his testimony that, quote, Jocelyn Benson only follows a law she agrees with. And we couldn't agree more. Former State Senator Colbert gave testimony in front of the House Election Integrity Committee this week, where he detailed how Dominion voting machines use Chinese components, which is illegal according to the law, and that Michigan voter rolls with Benson at the helm are an absolute mess. He also detailed how her office and other officials bury and stonewall FOIA requests for information. Join us now for the latest from Michigan is Senator Jim Runstad. He was the one you saw in that video. He represents Michigan's 23rd district, waving the flag or raising alarms about the latest push from Secretary Benson. It's like she just tries again, right, Senator, to find a way to make Michigan voting less secure. How did this particular effort work out this week?
Well, it's just one more example of what she has been doing since she got elected, and that is trying to use her office in every way to expand voter fraud. That is what her goal is. It's outrageous. She has been trying to rewrite the rules. That's what I was talking about there in that clip, to go around the legal process. So the process is that you have a bill brought up in the legislature. It has to go through both chambers. It has to pass both chambers. It goes to the governor, and the governor then signs or doesn't sign it. If they sign it, it becomes a law. Well, they don't like that process, so they go through the rules-making process. And the big issue I raised before is they want to rewrite rules or write rules for a bill that didn't exist. It's absolutely illegal. And what they were doing in this most recent iteration is taking a bill, and it said one thing, and the rules they wanted to write were completely contrary to what the bill said. Again, that's illegal. But this is the stuff she does all the time. When I was in the National State Legislator Organization, NCSL, and they had a huge group of legislators listening to this panel on election integrity, and they said one state was using the ERIC system, and I believe the number was 187,000 names were not accurate. And when they send to any state these inaccurate names, they removed them. And they said this state did not, and the state was Michigan under Benson. So this is just par for the course for her. There's just no rules that she will follow unless she perceives it benefits her. I think she's the most overturned Secretary of State ever. I think it's now 10 times she's been overturned by the Supreme Court. So, yeah, she's just a walking disaster here for the state of Michigan.
And that would only get worse if she's governor, right? Then you'd have a real problem, Senator Runstad.
I'm sorry, someone called in and interrupt me.
That's okay. I said, well, she hopes to be the state's governor, and I would imagine that that problem will only get worse if she's actually governor. Do you think that's likely?
Well, she's, from what I hear, the front runner for the governor's race on the Democrat side. So somebody who is such a massive partisan who's willing to violate the rules in every way she possibly can would be an absolute disaster for the state of Michigan. But there's a very competitive Republican governor's primary, and we've got a bunch of very, very good candidates. They're going to be vetted. They're going to be tried and tested coming out. So I'm convinced we will have a superb candidate to go up against her or whoever the Democrat nominee is next year.
After the leadership of Governor Whitmer, and then with Dana Nessel and Jocelyn Benson in tow, I would think Michigan really needs some desperate change. You talked about how partisan Jocelyn Benson is, and partisan politics came into play in a violent way recently in a particular Michigan county. That's in Dickinson County, where the Republican headquarters was attacked with a Molotov cocktail, right? You put out a statement condemning attacks, saying the violent attack on the Dickinson County Republican Party headquarters is unacceptable and must be condemned in the strongest possible terms. Throwing a Molotov cocktail at a local party office isn't protest, it's political violence. Plain and simple. No American should feel threatened or intimidated for participating in our democratic process, regardless of party affiliation. Tell us what happened here and were the perpetrators caught?
Well, it was this liberal activist. If you go online, you can see all of his liberal garbage. And he decided he was going to stop corruption, whatever the heck that means. And he was going to firebomb the Dickinson County Republican headquarters. And my understanding, it was 2 Molotov cocktails that he threw at the building. He fortunately was not well trained in his task, because if you watch the video, he lobs the bomb with this looping, ridiculous throw that you wouldn't see a 12-year-old make. And the bomb bounced off of the building and didn't, or off the window. It didn't burst inside the building. He also didn't get well trained on what kind of flame to use to make sure it stayed lit as it was smashing through the window. So a completely inept little terrorist. Yes, he was captured. He admitted to his dirty deed. And I think a lot of this we're seeing across the spectrum of the left is they demonize the other side. They don't just believe that Republicans have a different viewpoint, an alternate viewpoint. They believe that they are evil, they are demons, that the messaging from the Democrats that anyone that disagrees with them is a fascist, is a Nazi, is going to throw people in gulags, like they were saying about Donald Trump. I mean, here we are 5 months, 6 months into Trump's administration, and where's the gulags? Where's the mass arrests? All the lies, lies, lies. Every one of the Democrat leaders lying, and the media repeating their lies, lies. Where is all this crap? We all knew it was lies. But they'll whip her into a frenzy, some guy like this, and he thinks he's doing God's work by whipping a bomb into the Republican headquarters because of the frenzied lies of the left and the media.
Yeah, fortunately, in this case, it was a dumb criminal, but that's not always the case. Those who get ignited by the rhetoric of the left, and you're right, they've demonized people in the conservatives so much that I wanted to mention it because it is a concern. Fortunately, this guy was not a competent criminal, but we do have to keep vigilant because of the kind of characterization that the Democrat Party has put on conservatives. Real quick, Senator, before I let you go, I want to wrap it up with where we stand on election security in Michigan, right? Because there will be some consequential elections in 2026, as we've been talking about. I know Patrick Colbert testified this week before a committee in the state legislature. How are you feeling? Has there been enough effort made, or do you still have such a long way to go in Michigan?
We have a tremendous way to go. My concern is there will be more effort by the Democrats to cheat in elections in Michigan than in any other state. We're dealing with so many issues now. I was on the phone till 11 o'clock last night on election integrity. It's been a lot of what I've been talking about today with people on election integrity. The Democrats are rolling out their ranked choice voting here in Michigan, and they are all systems go. They always seem to have infinite number of dollars to do collection of signatures, infinite number of dollars to do advertising. I don't know why, but our side doesn't seem to engage and get serious about what's happening. But this ranked choice voting is a confusing operation on purpose that is designed to get the most liberal person into office. You got all these multiple candidates, and you got to vote them time and time again, working up through the process, as opposed to what our country's always had is the top vote getter wins. And they are pouring the money and the time and the effort into that now, along with so many other despicable voter operations here in Michigan. I hope that the RNC is listening. I hope that the people who can impact financially this issue will get in touch with us, help us, because they're starting right now. They're already starting on this.
Yeah, and time is running short. It seems like a long time away, but it's really not. And Michigan is one of the main targets of the Democrats, as you just noted, all that money coming in. I hope someone hears your call to action, Senator. I really do, because Michigan is a great state and it deserves election security. Thank you so much for this update. It's good to see you. Thank you for taking time on this Friday.
Thank you so much. Always glad to be on the show.
Why did the new foreign minister of South Korea recently describe the United States, South Korea's most important and powerful ally, as a voluntary slave state in which if you are Black, you will be shot to death? For South Korea's top diplomat, that, well, isn't very diplomatic, is it? And with friends like this, honestly, who needs enemies? So how did such an anti-American regime take power there? Here's what one South Korean wrote on Twitter. They wrote, quote, "I am a citizen of South Korea. The current South Korean administration is not a legitimate government. It is a criminal entity that has staged a coup in collusion with the Chinese Communist Party and North Korea, both of which have long worked to undermine and dominate South Korea from within. This group, now calling itself the South Korean government, has established an election fraud system by infiltrating and capturing key institutions in politics, the judiciary, media, corporations, and civil society over several decades. In the most recent election held on June 3rd, a massive level of election fraud was committed. According to our calculations, while approximately 80% of citizens participated, more than 7 million votes were manipulated. The final results were rigged to match pre-engineered polling data, which itself had been manipulated through biased sampling and population targeting." Sounds a bit familiar, doesn't it? Stolen presidential election, China manipulating votes. Honestly, I'm having flashbacks to the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Joining us now is our resident geopolitical analyst and the senior national security editor at the National Interest, Brandon J. Weichert. Brandon, it's been very interesting. This also was not on my radar, but I have had some people from South Korea sending me emails because I do cover election fraud, and I guess it's gotten some, international attention, asking me to highlight this, saying we're in a situation that we feel is very similar to the United States and outlining what is going on. Yep. And I really honestly hadn't seen much attention. I knew there was some tension in U.S.-South Korea relations, right? We've been talking about that a little bit here and there over the last few months, but this wasn't really on my radar so much. So can you explain to our audience what's happening and what has been an ally, South Korea?
Yeah, thanks for having me as always. This is the great Democratic Party, Chinese Communist Party, electoral fraud machine gone transnational. The same exact, and you were right to point this out, the same exact patterns we saw dominate the very suspicious 2020 presidential election that elevated Joe Biden to the presidency, President Autopen, elevated the current government, the new government of South Korea, which is a very far left government. It is very, as you saw, anti-American, very pro-CCP, and also pro-reunification with North Korea. Why a country like South Korea, one of the wealthiest, most advanced nations in the world, would want to reunite with a backward, failing cult of personality like North Korea is beyond me. It's certainly not a popular opinion among most South Koreans, but the election fraud is the story here, and it's the same kind of thing that we saw occur in the United States. And if we're not careful, Emerald, it's the same kind of thing that'll occur again here in the United States.
Yeah, and we have been, of course, talking about that extensively, right, and hoping for action soon on that front. But getting back to South Korea, I do remember back in December reports that the former Prime Minister, Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, declared martial law, right? Which sounded really bad. We had a military family that was about to move from where we live now to there. And I thought, well, this sounds really bad. But I guess I didn't understand the whole situation surrounding it. I am being told by these South Koreans that he declared martial law because of the election fraud.
Yeah.
Is that confirmed?
Yeah, so that's what he and his followers have been saying from the outset. Okay. Now, initially, everybody, because it was a very contentious political scene there, it was December of last year, a lot of people were kind of rolling their eyes saying, no, this is a guy who just doesn't want to give up power. In fact, we now know that the Chinese Communist Party, and you had that quote from that South Korean citizen who really did a masterful job on Twitter of breaking it all down. They know in South Korea the election machines were rigged. Again, we've heard this before. The election machines were rigged. The former president knew they were being rigged. The former president of South Korea is very pro-American, very anti-CCP. He is one of our closest friends. And so he tried to get out ahead of what he knew was going to be a rigged election by declaring martial law. Unfortunately, it didn't go his way. He ended up losing power anyway. The man is now sitting in a prison cell, being denied critical medical treatment, a lot like our January 6th protesters were being denied treatment and proper care while they were in prison. So this is a pattern, and I want to make it clear here. We know this election was corrupted by the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party knows South Korea is one of America's most important strategic partners in the Indo-Pacific. The Chinese Communist Party is desperate to isolate Taiwan on the world stage. They want to make sure that a country like South Korea is run by a friendly regime to Beijing so that when the hammer ultimately falls on Taiwan, that the Chinese will not have to worry about the South Koreans rushing with America to help Taiwan. This is ultimately about boxing out Taiwan and boxing out the Americans.
Yeah, actually, here's a pro-American South Korean official explaining why China wants South Korea so badly. Take a listen.
Something that's very important that I want to point out, what does this have to do with the United States? Not only is China trying to displace the United States as the world's lone superpower, but they want to make it so that South Korea would not come to the aid of Taiwan if they attack. And they want to make it easier for North Korea to be able to take over South Korea by force.
Yep. And that is from a pro-American politician who's heavily involved in the election. They were trying to get a recount. They were trying to get all of these things through the legal system to try to stop the current government from taking over. As you saw from the new foreign minister, they do not like America, and they very much want to reorient toward the Chinese Communist Party, which is a huge blow to the United States. One other thing I would add, the Trump administration was aware of this was going on, and they never sent anybody from the State Department to try to stop this steal. So I think that was a major flub on the part of the Trump administration. They should have been on the ground because this is going to have reverberations for our elections here.
That is very fascinating. It would be a good question for the Trump administration, right? Because there's so many parallels between the 2020 election, which President Trump still highlights and still warrants investigating. Maybe there's investigations going on into it. We know that Tulsi Gabbard has made several comments related to, we know there's an election fraud task force now out of ODNI. But there's so many parallels between this situation in South Korea, Brazil, and the U.S. So it would have behooved the Trump administration to have been involved in that in some way. We'll keep our eye on it. This is fascinating. We're going to keep covering this story. Thank you so much, Brandon Weichert.
Thank you.
I didn't know you were following it, and then we had a conversation, and I'm like, oh, let's talk about it because I've been getting these emails.
I follow everything.
Good to see you. You literally do. Speaking of such, I will be out on a programming note. I will be out this Monday, and Brandon Weichert will wants to be filling in with me. For me, and he'll have all these fantastic stories he follows and scoops on them. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Big win for President Trump as the rescission package passes the Senate and House. Allison Steinberg has more on that for us next.
Friends, we all know the truth. Big Pharma and the federal bureaucracy have made a mess of healthcare in this country, and boy, that's that's an understatement. President Trump signed an executive order to bring prices down, and that's a great step. But we know that real change takes time. There's one pharmacy that is already stepping up. I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy. They're not waiting. They're taking action now with a summer sale that gives you the power to take control of your health. Right now, through the end of June, you get 20% off site-wide, no insurance required. Did you hear that? 20% off, site-wide, no insurance required. They work with licensed doctors in all 50 states, and they ship fast, straight to your door. Whether it's ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, methylene blue, antibiotics, emergency kits, or your daily prescriptions, this is a time to stock up. If you believe in medical freedom, if you're tired of waiting for someone else to fix things, do what I do. Take action. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Lindell and use promo code Lindell20, Lindell 20 for 20% off your entire order. That's allfamilypharmacy.com, Lindell. Promo code Lindell20. Let's protect our families, defend our freedom, and make America healthy again together.
Well, it looks like Congress finally made a move in the right direction. In a 216 to 213 vote, the House just passed Trump's $9 billion rescission package that codifies the DOGE cuts, slashing money to public broadcasting and foreign aid. That includes over $1.1 billion stripped from PBS and NPR, and nearly $8 billion cut from bloated foreign handouts, including $800 million for refugee aid, $496 million for disaster relief, and $4.15 billion for economic growth and democracy programs abroad. The Senate passed the bill narrowly, 51 to 48, restoring $400 million to the HIV/AIDS program PEPFAR. These cuts represent only 0.1% of the federal budget. That's right. Not 1%, 0.1% of the federal budget. But still, this is a start as Republicans cite fiscal discipline. Democrats, on the other hand, warn of harm to rural media, public safety alerts, and U.S. global influence. Further rescission requests are expected. But this isn't just a budget cut. It's a course correction. Let's be honest here. PBS and NPR haven't represented Middle America in years. With Sesame Street teaching toddlers about racism and COVID vaccines propaganda.
People are upset because racism is a huge problem in our country. You were super duper today, getting your COVID vaccine, Elmo.
Yeah, there was a little pinch, but it was okay. From our Sesame Street family to yours, happy Pride!
And NPR teaching a slew of identity politics and LGBT propaganda, like the connection between emojis and white privilege, or queer children's books about sexuality in the animal kingdom. A private network doing this is perhaps one thing, but why are we, the taxpayers, footing the bill here? Following the House approval, President Trump took to Truth Social to rip into the left, stating, quote, House approves a $9 billion cuts package, including atrocious NPR and public broadcasting, where billions of dollars a year were wasted. Republicans have tried doing this for 40 years and failed. But no more. This is big, end quote. Meanwhile, here at home, America's falling apart. Toxic train derailments in East Palestine, homes wiped out in Maui, floods drowning towns in North Carolina and most recently Texas. And what does Congress do? Well, they send billions overseas. Just look at our cities. Tent encampments, open-air drug markets, needles and playgrounds. This isn't compassion. This is what failure looks like. Our infrastructure is collapsing. Bridges, highways, power grids, and yet Washington thinks it's more important to satisfy the needs of foreign nations rather than our own. It sounds like there was even more that could have been cut. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene stated that all of her amendments to cut $1.6 billion of foreign aid out of our defense budget failed, including $118 million for floods that haven't even happened yet, and $15 million for AIDS education for soldiers in Africa, and her amendment to stop money laundering to Ukraine. All rejected. We are $37 trillion in debt, and Congress will never, ever fix it because they will never, ever stop the insane, out-of-control spending that drives inflation up and makes your life unaffordable. This $9 billion rescission package is a great first step, but it is just that, a first step. We need more cuts. We need accountability. We need to take care of our country. America First isn't just a slogan, it's a mandate. Reporting for LindellTV, I'm Allison Steinberg.
Next year will be our last season. The network will be ending The Late Show in May. And yeah, I share your feelings. It's not just the end of our show, but it's the end of The Late Show on CBS. I'm not being replaced. This is all just going away.
Well, that's right. It's time to celebrate another victory in the long culture war. It's time to say farewell to Colbert. That's right. CBS just canceled Stephen Colbert's late night show yesterday for no particular reason. Now, the moral of this story is that Colbert got woke and then he got smoked. Now, CBS answered that after shutting down Colbert's show next season, it would be replaced with nothing. Nobody is taking over his late night spot. It's all just going away, which CBS called a financial decision against a challenging backdrop in late night. CBS claimed that the decision was not related in any way to the show's performance or its content or other matters happening at Paramount. Folks, this is called misinformation. If Colbert had a big audience, would he be gone? If Colbert still made money for CBS, would he be gone? They loved him at the network when he pushed the vaccines a few years ago. Remember that embarrassing U-turn for big pharma cash? Watch this.
Some folks are skeptical. Thankfully, Big Pharma has come up with a way to reassure the public about their motives, and it's all in their new ad.
Are you worried about the future? Unable to sleep at night? Afraid that pharma companies will put their profits ahead of your health? If you are concerned about the cost of a vaccine, ask your doctor about Vaxilax. Vaxilax is the only medication proven to reduce anxiety about Big Pharma taking advantage of you in a national crisis. You can trust Vaxilax because of its mascot, Professor Cashington, the ethical money sack.
Side effects of Vaxilax include legless rest syndrome, kidney rhinestones, crumblefoot, spontaneous beard sparrows, the galloping hoop sticks, spinal crunch wrapping, Ferdinand's flopsy, big old pink face, Gordon's fisherman syndrome, scrotal yodas, chronic vaccine resistance, facial graham crackering, full-blown coronavirus, and dollar bills, y'all.
The vaccine.
Now, it's strange that Colbert seemed to mock the very things that America's national security state wanted to mock, just like it's odd that Colbert seemed to defend the very things that the CIA wanted to defend. Let's just take the issue of election fraud. Colbert was a mouthpiece for all of the government's forces that didn't want you to know how the voting machines in America are rigged. Colbert was always reading from the Biden regime script. Listen.
Poor Mike Lindell. Between this and the billion-dollar Dominion lawsuit, how's he going to come up with that kind of cash? Look. I have been forced to sell my most precious MyPillow of all, my MyPillow. Last night was our final embrace. She absorbed my tears with grace and sensuality, as well as my drool and a little bit of mustache funk. Goodbye, my darling. Mike's going back to what he used to sleep on, a garbage bag full of day-old hot dog buns.
So, what you're feeling today as Colbert cries about the end of his show is not just an overdose of irony, but justice. That's because the pillow guy outlasted the unfunny liberal late show comedian who mocked him for caring about election fraud. And that's the absolute truth. And remember, you can help support MyPillow and stick it to Stephen Colbert even further by going to MyPillow.com and using your promo code TRUTH. We have Mike Lindell and Carlos Cortez of Scriptures in Wall Street up with a very special interview next. That's it from me. I'll see you at 8 p.m.